Tonight is actually going to look just a little bit different. As you can see, we have a very nice table right here, and I'm not going to eat on my own and let you watch me. That's not what's happening. But we actually have a panel of very beautiful ladies, and I'm going to have them join me. Janine, don't be shy. You guys know Janine. You can give them a clap, a round of applause. No, I'm not going to stop it. You know Janine, but you may not know a few of the faces. You know Liz as well if you go to Sunrise. Liz is also with us tonight. Oops, sorry, go ahead. And we also have two very beautiful ladies that if you haven't met them yet, you're going to meet them tonight. We have Carol with us. She's walking all the way over there, and Martha. And they actually are part of FBC, First Baptist, but we're all sisters, so they're joining us tonight, and we're really, really glad to have them. Tonight is going to look a little different because I wanted to invite some women so that you can hear from many different perspectives of women that have walked with God. They've all been saved for quite a long time. A lot of them have been married for longer than I've been alive. So, they have a lot of experience, and I want to know what they have to say. So why don't I let them introduce themselves very briefly? Maybe we can start with Janine. There we go.
No. There we go. Hi, I'm Janine. New to the island, 7 months now, I think. Yeah. Anything else?
What do you do?
At the moment, I'm the first grade teacher at First Baptist Christian School.
How many kids do you have?
I've got, my own children. I've got 2 children, sorry, the great ones. I've got 2 children, yes. Emma's 5, Paige is 7. Been married for just over 13 years now. Settling in Cayman. Still missing South Africa on the odd day, but happy to be here.
And I'm Liz DeCow. I'm married to Erwin. We've been married 29 years in May, and that's how long we've been on the island here. We've got 2 children, actually young adults, correct me here. Josh is 25. Who's just graduated from university, and Bethany is 23. She's finishing up her last year of master's in the UK in physio, and they were born and raised here, and they call Cayman their home.
I'm Martha Buford, and I came to the island in 1990, lived here for 15 years, and then left for 14 and came back in July. I'm married to Paul Buford. We have no children. And I'm glad to be back. I'm working at First Baptist Church as the Discipleship Director and Women's Ministry Director.
And I'm Carol Holtzhaus. My husband David and I have been married for 40 years. And we have 5 children, 12 grandchildren. And I also work at First Baptist. I work in the school office. Been here on the island since August. So, been loving it.
Good. We're so glad to have you ladies with us tonight. So tonight we'll have a couple of different questions, and we wanted to. What I want to say is, if you hear a question, you're like, "Oh, I don't have children." Shut off your brain. No. Yes, we're going to have different questions about marriage and being single and being married and even difficult times in their lives. So listen, lean in. I'm sure there's something in here that God wants to speak to you. I'm sure God wants to speak to me. So I'm really excited for tonight. So why don't we get started? Some of the questions I'll probably be like, hey, how about you tell us something like that? No, you're going to be great. But if it's open-ended, then you guys are welcome to. Don't fight over the microphone, but take turns and tell us a little bit of what you think of the question. So we'll start with the first question. This one is an easy one. It should be a fun one, maybe. Let's hope so. How did you know your husband was the one?
Do you mean when Jason ran into a burning building to save me?
Oh, yes. I want to hear.
I wish it was that clear. Jason and I met, and soon after that, I went to teach English in Taiwan, and so we got to know each other long distance. And it was in that time that it just started to feel right. Like I just had such a peace about it. I didn't hear God in an audible voice or, get a specific scripture, but I just had this growing peace, and friends and family just confirmed for me what I was already feeling in my heart.
For me, it was as well a long-distance relationship.
Long distance, ladies. Take notes.
Yes, right up until we got married. I'm from Canada. I lived in Ontario, Toronto, and my husband is from Manitoba, Winnipeg. So, yay. We had been friends for many years. We were dating different people over the years, but basically it came to really good friends and extended family who we started doing trips together, ski trips out west in Canada, and we were really good friends, as I said, and then things just started developing. We were older, in our mid-20s, and we are very strong in our faith, and I wouldn't say that I knew just like that he was the right one. But I think as we dated, God just revealed that we were meant to be together, and we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, because living here for 29 years on our own, completely away from family, we both come from very close families, and we knew that it was a commitment, and to come here not knowing anybody, it was just the two of us to form our own family identity, and I don't think I would have been able to do that with anybody else that I dated previously.
Yeah.
Well, she was older at mid-20s. I was older at 30. I was still single. And I had a heart for missions for a long time, so I was headed for Africa, and I said, I'm going to take a real vacation before I go off to Africa, where I'm not going to meet anybody. I've given that up. So I came to the Cayman Islands. My brother lived here, and I came to visit him for 2 weeks. And he introduced me to his golfing partner who wanted to date me, but I was like, not interested. And I went to my final interview in Virginia, and they said, we're not comfortable. I'm a nurse, and they're not comfortable sending you to this remote area where you're going to be the only nurse, the only medical person, and you've just spent 10 days in the hospital with a heart condition, and who's going to look after you if you get sick? So I think we should take care of your heart condition first. So I came back to the Cayman Islands 2 months later, left engaged, and married him 4.5 months after I met him, and moved to the island the next week. So if you're younger than 29, you can forget everything I just said, but if you're older, then I think you just know. And I know that sounds like, how do you just know? But by then, I had asked God so many times. I had a list, yes. I had a list of the things I was looking for. But when it became right, it was quick. And he said, well, do you want to wait longer? I said, we should wait longer. And he said, why? If we know, well, we're going to work it out regardless, because divorce is not an option, so we'll work it out anyway. So that's what we did 29 years later.
Okay, so I'm kind of the opposite as far as I was 15 when Dave and I started dating, and he was 17. So, very young. We met on the school bus. And I actually had a crush on his best friend. And his best friend was telling him about me, but never introduced me. And then we happened to meet on the bus. So the best friend went by the wayside, and Dave and I just started dating. And he was, I'm not sure either that I knew that he was the one. Maybe that's because it was so long ago that I can't really remember that far back. But, thinking back, he treated me very well when we were dating. Always very kind. My parents loved him. My family loved him. And then we actually both, even though both grew up in Christian homes, we both got saved while we were dating. So, we just, we did date for 3 years before we got engaged and stuff. So I do feel very, very fortunate that that the Lord had him for me.
Yeah, it's awesome. Martha, so in waiting for marriage, did you ever feel like it probably wouldn't come? And how did you learn to wait, or how did you cope with that?
Well, I had the bar set pretty high from the time I was 16 already. So that eliminated a lot of people, because if you weren't excited about God, if you were like playing in the world, I just wasn't interested. I already had that set in my heart. But by the time I was going to Africa, it was kind of like, okay, God, I guess this isn't going to happen. Because, yes, I had my timeline. You know, I wanted to meet somebody by the time I was 28 and know him for 2 years. I had my first baby by the time I'm 30 and blah, blah, blah. And the time clock was ticking and it wasn't happening. And it was a struggle, but I had to come to peace with that God, I trust that your ways are perfect. And I will trust you even though I can't see it right now. Mm-hmm. And to tell you the truth, when I let it go is when it came.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what would any of you ladies, say to our single ladies here tonight? How would you encourage them to make the most out of their single years, and how would you advise them to deal with loneliness while they wait?
So I didn't handle my single years well. I became totally consumed with, who is he? Like I wanted to wait for the one. Like from the age of 15, I was already writing, dear future husband, you know. I wanted to marry my first boyfriend. But it became like I was so fixated on it. And so I feel like it stole so much of my life that, I was just so consumed by it. Rather than just enjoying my single years, enjoying my friends, enjoying the adventures. So, I don't know, like just live your single years for the glory of God, because then your married years will glorify him too. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think the songs that we sang tonight were pretty pointed at that. Because if you were looking at the words and the lyrics, they're very much love songs. And as a single person, it's really easy to have expectations of this knight in shining armor that's going to come and rescue you. And girls, the only person who can do that is Jesus. And that's what we sang about all night tonight. It was like, he's the one that's going to kick down every wall, kick down every lie. He's the one that's going to pursue you. And while you're single, trust me, while you're single, you have the opportunity to have that relationship with him in a way that you'll never will again once you're married. So take advantage of it. Yeah. There was this one year in my second year of college when I was frustrated with the dating situation. And I said, okay, God, you said in Isaiah that you would be my husband. So what does that look like? And I pretended. I got up and I talked to him in the first thing in the morning. I talked to him the last thing at night. I called him during the day. That's not really, there was no cell phones in those days. But I talked to him like I thought I would if I had. And I have to say that is the highlight of my spiritual walk up to this day. He's never been as close as he was that year. So you have that opportunity that will not be there once you have the distraction of kids and a husband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Thank you. Now, for those who have been married longer than maybe myself, how have you actually kept your marriage, the spark, alive for so many years? We're all looking at you, Carol. No, I'm just kidding.
So I really think that, and I'm going to say this partially because of my parents. So my dad was a pastor, so their lives were very consumed with ministry, and sometimes to the detriment of family. And so when Dave and I started having children, and we would take time, maybe once a year or twice a year because we were poor, that we would take time away. We would have our children go to friend's house, and we would be gone, maybe for a weekend. And I just remember one time my dad saying to me how much he wished that they had done what we were doing. And it just was a priority for us, even though we were poor, to make our family and our relationship a priority. I also have to say that my husband has made living with him very fun. Sometimes I thought we didn't just have 5 kids, we had 6, or I had 6, because he would be so much like a kid. And maybe this is like a little scatterbrained, but I was listening to a podcast, and the pastor was talking about love. And this goes for anybody and everybody, that life is about relationships, and that we are to love God first and love everyone else second. And that's for anybody. And, it makes me think that my attitude often, and this is off the trail of keeping it a spark life, but, my attitude about even strangers that I don't know is not very loving. Driving in the car sometimes, reactions is not very loving. And I think sometimes that we think of ourselves more highly than we ought to. And oftentimes when I don't have a good attitude about serving my husband, the Lord reminds me that he came to serve, and that's our responsibility too, is to serve others. So that's not just for a husband, not just for a marriage relationship, but for any relationship. But I just really have enjoyed being married to my husband. He's made it, very easy to live with him.
That's amazing to hear. Yeah.
2 things. Number 1, keep your sense of humor. Humor, even when you want to say something that's like not going to be, it's not good, pick it up off the floor. If you can find a humorous way to say it, it just makes it go easier. It just is received better. So keep your sense of humor. I told you I had a list of things I was praying for in husband, and I prayed for a sense of humor. And I wished I had prayed for how much, because I got the mega dose. And sometimes it's kind of like, can we stop? Or, yes, it is like having another child. The other thing to remember is whatever difficult phase of your marriage or your life that you're in, it's just a slice. Don't define yourself or your relationship or your marriage by this time when, you've got kids running around and you can't even talk, you don't have time to breathe, or it's lonely. He's at work all the time, he's running, he's just away all the time. That's not your marriage. It's just this season, it's just this slice right now.
Yeah, that's great. So true.
Nacho's not. That's how we keep the spark alive. Nacho's not. No, I'm just kidding. Jason and I were given premarital advice. Somebody once said to us, always be naughty. And it really has helped. Yeah, I mean, like, life gets so hectic and busy, especially with young kids, but it's those little things that you do for one another, just let's quickly meet somewhere for coffee when we're actually supposed to be somewhere else. It's just those little, leaving notes for each other somewhere. When those feelings are not there, it's doing the little things that refuel that love.
Yeah.
Anyway, so always be naughty.
I know we had date nights, so we took time out. We had 2 very busy kids. Josh did practically every sport on the island here. And then Bethany ended up doing gymnastics here. And so our schedule, and I went back to work. I'm actually a nurse here at Jasmine. But it was just crazy because I'm kind of a little bit control freak, I guess you would say, with the kids and just managing their time. But I know for us, we had to make an effort to take time out for just the two of us. And that's with any relationship, close relationship, even girlfriends. You know, if you've got a close friend, that's really how your relationship grows. And spending time together, and then prayer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. Praying together is a must. Yeah. What would you say to women who are married but also are struggling with loneliness in their marriage? Maybe because their husband works a lot, maybe because their husband is an unbeliever and they don't share the same beliefs. I don't know.
The first word that comes to mind is communicate that, because you might be feeling lonely, but maybe your husband doesn't know that. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. Communicate that, start from there.
If it truly is a disjointed, lonely situation, and you don't have that communion that you want, it's really no different than when you were single. He's still first. He still says, when he says in Isaiah, he says that I will be your husband. He's not talking to a married woman or a single woman. He's just talking to a woman. Because if you expect the same expectations that you might have in a marriage that aren't being fulfilled, could have been there when you were single. But he will satisfy all of those things if you look to him.
Yeah.
I say that from experience. He will. So if you start looking at the negative, you'll start complaining, and it will get worse. So be grateful for what you have, and feed it. Feed it, not feed him. Feed the...
Also,
I married a cook, so he feeds me. But no, feed the whenever you do get something that really does feed your soul, or you have a good time together, make sure you nurture that. Make sure you give positive feedback. That really does go a long way. A lot of the principles that work in any relationship work in a marriage, and a lot of verses that we think are for marriage or not for marriage are actually just for marriage. Like, why are there quarrels among you? Because you're selfish and you're looking after your own. Like, all those verses, you can apply them to marriage, and they'll give you the clue for how to fix it.
That's great.
I know in 2008, when we made a decision to move our kids to high school to Canada, I ended up resigning from my career. And we made the decision to move them up to Canada. And Erwin was here working. So it was 6 years of almost being like a single mom. Although he was able to work remotely every month, I felt very much alone at times. And what I did is I got involved in a church. I had some fellow sisters in Christ who really helped me go through the tough times raising teenagers. And although Erwin and we were every day communicating. I mean, obviously we had phones and cell phones, so we were regularly doing that. But I know sometimes just when I needed a hug and he wasn't there, it was a good girlfriend, a couple of girlfriends that I really have had a close relationship with even before I got married. And fortunately, they were up in Canada with me, and they really helped me through some tough times.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's what this is about as well. Finding women that can be there for you, you know? Now, on that topic, what would you say to ladies here tonight that maybe are starting over? Maybe there's single moms, or maybe after a difficult breakup, or even a divorce, or those who feel like maybe they failed in waiting for God in their singleness. What encouragement or advice would you have for them?
You are loved. That's straight away. Just know that you are loved. And secondly, God does the most beautiful things in our lives when we are broken. I've been reading a book called The Broken Way, and there's a little story in there about a little girl who she cut a heart out of a piece of paper and it got torn. So she took it to her mom, and her mom said, "Oh no, don't worry, I'm going to stick it back together for you." And she said, "No, Mom, maybe when it's broken, the love can come in more." And that's really stuck with me. So you are loved, and God does beautiful things when we are broken.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't ever waste a hard time. He doesn't ever waste an injury or an offense. Those are the times we grow the most, is when we're in that hurting place. Yes, the love does come in because it's broken. I went through, when I got married, and I thought, well, now we'll wait a few years and then we'll have kids. And then that didn't happen. And life went on. I'm getting older, and it's not happening. So I began to count off my life in 9-month segments. Well, now, and then it'll be next. And I wasted a couple of years just counting off my life in these huge chunks of time that I'm not pregnant yet. And it'll be 9 months, and then it'll be 30, and then I'll be 35, and then I'll be... And I wasted some time there that I really could have been just letting God use that time to mature me, and because I never did have children. And I'm okay with that. At the time when I hit 39, I said, God, you either have to take away this desire or give me a child. And by the time I hit 40, I had peace, a peace that I would have been a little bit upset if I had got pregnant by then. But I kind of wished I had gotten to that place before then. I felt like I wasted some time not letting him just speak to me in that situation and be whatever I needed.
Yeah. How about any encouragement in parenting? There's a lot of us in here that have children. How would you encourage us, and how did you guide your kids and teenagers to have healthy relationships and to put God first? You have 5, Carol. Give us some pointers.
Well, even though we have a large family, I don't know that I really feel qualified, really. You don't know all the answers when you get them. And I will say that I was the lenient parent, and my husband was the one that was, more disciplined, which children need. And I think probably really looking back, I made a lot of mistakes. Sorry? That's okay. But maybe I'm at a place where I can help my children as they parent. So I think I would do things differently, looking back. Be more patient and consistent. I mean, there would be times I'd go to bed and think, oh my word, all I did was yell or, just not be the model parent, so I don't know, maybe... I don't know. I don't know what to say about there's not a perfect parent.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes, and so I don't know. I don't think I'm qualified.
Your kids doing
Liz?
I know for us, our faith and sharing our faith, passing it on to our kids was the number one thing. And as I said, the two kids were super busy in just extracurricular elite sports. Josh ended up doing travel basketball in Canada, so a lot of practices with high school and then this travel team. And I'll never remember when I first, the first away tournament in Toronto, and I sat beside a lady, her name's Dorothy. She has 4 boys, 3 of them played on that travel team. And we were just chatting. I met her for the first time, and she whispers in my ear, she says, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "I am too." And they had a policy not a policy, they kept Sundays as a time that they would, as a family, go to church. And so every game that was on a weekend that fell on a Sunday, they just weren't there. And 3 of the boys were strong players. And for Bethany, with her gymnastics, it turned out that she had gymnastics with her, part of her team, on a Sunday morning. And we prayed about it. And she just felt that she needed to go to church on a Sunday morning with the family. And we spoke to the coach, and it turned out another mom had a same conviction. She's Catholic background, and so the 2 of them ended up training in the afternoon. But just to my point in regards to their faith, really living it, not just saying it, being an example to them. We gave up a lot of things, and just because we really felt that their spiritual upbringing was so important, and they are both now young adults, and that has been a huge foundation in their lives, especially through their high school years. And I had this conversation with Bethany on Sunday because we were FaceTiming. I said, "Bethany, what would you say?" And she actually said, "Mom, as much as we had boundaries growing up, both, like an elite sport, you have boundaries, and we really felt as a family, their spiritual upbringing, we needed boundaries for them. And, giving up some things, and so it was the boundaries and then the commitment to our faith where, she's attending a church in the UK, and she says she actually, when she doesn't go or is part of a group, a community group, she actually feels like something's empty, so... it's. I just want to encourage all of you. It is possible to have faith, committed kids, even in their young adult time, and it will carry them through many distractions, many low points in their lives, even through university. It was the foundation that we laid as a family really helped them through when they entered university, both of them. They ended up getting involved in so many different things, and they ended up going to Canada where, it's quite liberal. And, there's so many there's athletes in action, there's intervarsity in university, and they just really got involved. And it's not about, just being in a Bible study. It's about having fun. The athletes in action, they have sports teams and all these things. So you can really encourage your kids to have a fun-filled, faith-based life. And embrace it. And another thing she said, we as parents never instilled, never judged them. We allowed them to experience things in life, some things that we didn't agree with, but it always brought them back. And she says, I lost my train of thought now. It's what she said is they still had to, as much as they were raised in a Christian family, they still had to make their own commitment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was about them making their own decision about serving Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, they're out there, and so much a part of parenting is as they get to that age of young adulthood, you would not believe the relief that you have as a parent of just releasing them, because you know that they are, pretty strong in their faith. And it's a huge comfort to us as parents, but it's an everyday, encouraging them and allowing them to spread their wings, by themselves, and even make some mistakes, because they have made mistakes. And trust me, I have been not a perfect parent at all. There's been many struggles, and Bethany definitely can attest to that, because it's hard work being a parent, especially now with social media and everything. It's hard.
Yeah. And on that sort of trail, obviously we wouldn't want anybody to think here that we have it all together and that everybody has a perfect life and, it's a Disney movie up in here. But what can you say to us, I think all of us as women, who feel like we have to keep it together all the time? I think that's a struggle for all of us, to feel like we have to have it together, keep it together for our family's sake, for our own sake, for everybody's sake. Well, how would you encourage us in that?
I grew up in a family where I never saw my parents fight. Never. They never raised their voice. And they had 9 kids. I don't know how they did it. But I married a man who, his family didn't ever talk at a normal tone of voice. Everything was like, loud and across the room. And so I had to learn to fight. Not fight, but just to express. I had to come up with rules, and I had to come up with ways of expressing myself. And he had to learn how to listen. But I wished that my parents would have fought in front of me. I wish that they had taught me how to negotiate conflict, how to have a discussion and not back down and listen to somebody else's opinion, because I never saw that example for me, so I didn't know how to do it when I got married. Mm-hmm. And actually God has taught us that, because although we didn't have children, we've had adults come and live in our home, and all of them have come from situations either from one of them 3 times divorced mother, another one her own marriage fell apart, and another young man, his father died when he was 12, all missing that couple relationship example. Mm-hmm. And so we learned that the girls particularly would come to me with their problems, their guy problems, and they would talk to me. I'd give them my advice, and then I'd say, now I want you to go into the other room. I want you to talk to my husband and get a man's opinion. And just saying that kind of balance is a good thing to example for your kids, and you don't have all the answers. Let the other person show them that there's a different opinion, and that'll help prepare them for a better life and a better marriage when they get into their own.
What would you say to us who feel like we have to keep it all together all the time?
Fake it if you're not fighting.
Don't fake it. Do you want to say anything to that?
Well, I feel like that. I feel like I have to have it together all the time, so I needed that advice, I mean, I try my best at home just to be real and, yeah, just however I'm feeling, just to be able to say to Jason and the girls, I'm feeling like this because blah, blah, blah. Because I want Paige and Emma to be able to communicate like that too, so just to be real,
Yeah.
So I actually asked my daughter this question on Sunday, and she said, big capital letters, "You didn't." And I know I lost it a number of times. And I know the biggest saving grace probably was just, I realized it afterwards, and I actually went to them and apologized, both to my husband, if I do with my girlfriends, and I am not perfect, and I've got, so I think being genuine and real, they know by the time they're teenagers if you're faking it or not. They really do. So it's being genuine, and then admitting your faults.
Yeah. That's great. And can you share with us maybe a difficult time in your life? It doesn't have to be about your marriage or anything, or a struggle, and how God brought you through, or maybe how he's walking you through now. And if you already went through it, looking back, how can you now see God's hand over it?
Lisa, where's Lisa?
Up there.
Lisa, that last song that we sang, and it says, I'm loved, it's who I am. So now I'll talk about a current struggle. I really struggle with my identity. I find, I see myself through what I'm doing. So in South Africa, I was an artist. That was my identity. And before that, I worked for a children's hospice, and that was who I was. And I've now moved here, and I don't know who I am here. I feel like I've completely lost my identity. I'm Jason's wife, and everybody knows that that's Jason's wife. But when you sang that song, I am loved, it's who I am, I just want to know that in my heart. I want that to be real for me, because that's where our identity is. We are God's children, and we are loved, and that's who we are. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And to the single girls, I just want to say that you are complete. And if you figure out who you are, you let God tell you who he sees you as, and you live in that completeness, you'll be much better in any relationship. You're not less than, or you're not half of the apple like those books used to say, or any of that kind of stuff. Because I'm saying, if you have insecurities about who you are before your marriage, when you get married, you just brought them into the marriage, and then it's the same thing. So don't delay figuring that out until you meet him.
Yeah.
So about 5 or 6 years ago, our youngest daughter married to Chris. They had been married for a few years when mental illness entered our family. And never having been around someone who struggled with mental illness, it was quite jolting to our family. But I'm going to say that God really used it to open our eyes to being compassionate and loving, and just a whole new understanding of people who struggle with mental illness and the people who love them. And so during that time, and it was over a period of about 3 years, and actually he still kind of teeters at times, but God showed me this verse, Psalms 5:3. In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and wait expectantly. And when I read that, I was just like, wow, what hope that you can pray about something and then you can just wait to see God answer. And so many lessons taught out of, seeing someone struggle and loving them and loving them through it. And just really quickly, Chris was early into his struggle and was hospitalized, had come home from the hospital. They had invited me to come over for dinner. Dave was gone traveling. On the way over, I heard a song on the radio about God's love, never giving up, never giving up. And so when I got there and we sat around the table and talked, I told him about this verse I heard, and I want him to know that just like God was there for us, always loving us, we would be there for him. So it wasn't long after that on a Saturday morning I saw them. We were supposed to have a family get-together that night. When Liz came, she was by herself. And I was so invisibly upset, so we assumed something had happened. And going home from that family get-together, I was so angry with him. And the next morning in church, we sang that song about God's love, never giving up. And it was like God said to me, you know what, you made a promise, and at first opportunity, you blew it. And it was such a big wake-up call for me when you commit to loving somebody just like God loves us, and just like I feel God all the time. So about a week ago, we got a phone call from another member in our family, and weeping on the other end. And after he was able to kind of get it together, situation with his family, when I laid down to bed, this verse came to my mind. Psalms 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. How great is our Lord. And God just reminded me that he is there to heal us.
Yeah.
And it really is true that when you go through a tough time, that God will use it sometime down the road for ministry to somebody else. And we've already seen that with Liz and Chris, where they have been able to reach out to other people to say, hey, we have a story to tell, and we can help, we can help you. And so while it's never fun going through tough times, my mind just continually goes back to these two verses about how we can pray, and then we can just be excited to see how God is going to answer.
That's awesome. Yeah. Anything else? No? No. Well, can we say thank you so much to these ladies for being with us tonight? You're welcome to, we're not just done just yet. I actually wanted to, before we close tonight, I want to read a verse with you, and it should show up on the screen. And the verse is Ecclesiastes 3, verse 11. And it says, he has made everything beautiful and appropriate in its time. And he has also planted eternity and a sense of divine purpose in the human heart, a mysterious longing which nothing under the sun can satisfy except God. Yet man cannot find out, comprehend, or grasp what God has done, his overall plan, from the beginning to the end. And I just kept thinking about this verse because it's so easy to hear people who have been married for 40 years or have children that have already grown or are not in the place that you are. Maybe you're waiting for something. Maybe the answer hasn't come yet. Maybe you're still feeling the loneliness we were talking about. Maybe you are seeing God, you're asking God, yes, God, where are you? But he's not answering. And sometimes I think that we can say, well, God answers everybody else but me. Or he does the wonderful things that, I hear in church for everybody else. But what about me? What about my children? What about where's my husband? Where's the salvation of my family? Where are all these things that I keep asking him for? And I want us to take this with us tonight. Your heart and my heart have been purposefully designed in such a way that we will forever be looking for something to satisfy our deepest longing, but we won't succeed. with anything under the sun, except for God. I don't want you to leave tonight thinking that marriage is what you need, or children are what you need, or a perfect relationship is what you need, or a perfect job is what you need, or a perfect financial situation is what you need, or whatever is it that you have in the back of your mind saying, no, I know what I need. That's not what you need. I'm preaching to myself. That's not what I need. I wish I could find it, and I wish it could satisfy me, but God is saying, no, that's not what you need. It's not a job, it's not a partner. All these things are gifts, they're pluses. God gives us this out of excess of love. Yes, it's an extra that he blesses us with. But these things, these extra gifts, they're not the greatest gift of all. Our hearts have been made for so much more. We want good marriages so that people can see his glory. We want to raise good children so that they can follow God and they can show his glory. We want to have good jobs and we want to have good relationships and we want to honor him in everything that we do. Yes, we want to have a good singleness, a good season of being single so that we can bring him glory. Yes. But nothing is going to satisfy other than him. And until we allow him to write that truth in our hearts, we're always going to be looking for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And the thing that you think that you're missing to make you whole is not what you think it is. And I think we live our lives for such long periods like this. We're searching. I'm not whole until I have this other thing, like Martha said. It's a lie. You're not somebody's other half. You're a whole. Two whole people come together. That's a good marriage. You're not an apple walking around half sliced. It's not true. Throw that away. That's a lie. It shouldn't be anyway. And it could be so many things. And I know that you're probably thinking, yes, but you have it. You have the husband and you have the children. There's something we're all looking for. Ask anybody. But you know what I realized? These things have become idols in our hearts. They're idols in my heart and in yours. And they're blocking the way for the beauty of God. You see them as more desirable than him. You see them as the thing that you need. And sometimes we don't realize that until God allows that blessing to come into our lives and it overtakes our lives. Sometimes God gives you the very thing you wanted so badly. And then you forget about him. You leave him. You walk away with the blessing and you forget the one who gave it to you. But the blessing and its bliss won't last forever. It's not enough. The most amazing husband or job or child or money, you name it. You know it. You're thinking about it. It won't do. And there's a beautiful story in John 4, and you've probably heard it if you've been to church for a while. But John 4 talks about this woman, and I love that it's a woman. It could have been a guy, but Jesus made sure it was a woman, so I like that. I like that it was a lady that he purposely went to look for. He didn't have to stop by this town, but he made sure he stopped by Samaria to meet her, one woman. He stops at this well, and she's there gathering water because obviously they didn't have water like we do. They had to go to wells and dig them out and get their water with their bucket. And she's just going about her business, and he comes along, and we find him in verse 7. And read with me. It says, when a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? The Samaritan woman said to him, you're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who is it that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you a living water. Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw with and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, and did also his sons and his livestock?" And Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water that I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." He told her, "Go and call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she said. Jesus said to her, "You're right. When you say you have no husband, the fact is that you have had 5, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you just said is quite true." "And sir," the woman said, "I can see you're a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." Jesus says, "Woman, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and in truth." And the woman said, "I know the Messiah, called Christ, is coming. And when he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." Just imagine that encounter. She's there. She's obviously not getting it because she keeps thinking about the water in front of her, and she keeps saying, "Yes, he's coming. It's another one. It's not you." He's trying to hint. He's trying to be like hinting at it so that she gets it herself. And finally, he's like, "Woman, I'm right in front of you. The one that you've been waiting for, the one that everyone has been waiting for. I'm right here. I'm standing right in front of you." And I just couldn't stop thinking about this encounter because, one, Jesus made the effort to go find her. And I love that we sang that earlier. He went and he found her. He didn't have to, but he did. He met her. He knew exactly where she was at. He knew her life because he was asking questions, but he already knew the answer to this question. "Bring your husband." "I don't have one." "You have 5. I know that. You don't have to tell me." And he wasn't trying to shame her. He was trying to point something in her life that she had been looking for so consistently. This woman thought one husband was going to fix it. Nope. The next one might do it. Nope. The next one, and so on and so forth, 5 times. And again, one more time. We're all that woman, even though we haven't been married 5 times. We do it with different things. It's not marriage. Okay, I'll have children. No, it's not my child. No, okay, I'll go back into my career. No, it's not that. No, it's the other thing, and so on. And we live our lives as if he isn't enough. But he extends an invitation to her. He says, "Woman, drink from this water. Drink from this well. And you don't have to live this way anymore. You don't have to live wishing something satisfied your soul. You don't have to live this way." And the invitation that he extended to her, he's extending to you. Maybe you're waiting for Prince Charming. Maybe you're waiting for something else to come in your life. Maybe you're asking God for something and he hasn't done it yet. And you think that you can't be happy or satisfied until he does. That's not true. He wants us to live our lives from a place of being satisfied in God. We can live our lives satisfied with him, that even when he does bless us, the blessings won't steal our hearts from him. And even when he does bless us, we will be able to enjoy them, but they won't possess our hearts and our minds. It won't be everything to us. He will still be everything. And even when he says no, even when we lose things And even when times are incredibly hard, we will be able to remain joyful and peaceful because we're already satisfied. Sometimes the very things that we think we so desperately need are the ones that take us deeper into the presence of God, if we let Him. So why don't we stand up tonight? And before we go, I want to pray. I want to pray for you. I want to pray for me. That God will become everything to us. That He would satisfy our hearts. That we wouldn't live our lives as if He's not there. As if there's something else that should come and fill the void in our lives. And yes, Lisa, we'll sing eventually, but I want to pray for you first. Lord, we thank you for tonight. We thank you that you were here, and we thank you that you spoke to our hearts, and we thank you that you've been so faithful, Lord, and we trust that your word has gone out and you're speaking to us. But God, more than anything, and if it's the only thing we take away from tonight, remind us that we can't satisfy our souls or our hearts with anything other than you. Open our eyes to see you. Open our eyes to see you like the woman at the well. You're standing right in front of us and you're saying, I'm it. I'm He, the one you're looking for. Open our eyes, because only you can open our eyes to see you like that. Open our hearts to cherish you, to love you, to put you first, God. We need you. And help us to live from a place of knowing that we are loved, that we are worthy, that we have enough, and that we are enough in you. And then we're not waiting for anything else to make us whole, because you already have. We thank you for your presence, and we thank you for your forgiveness, and we thank you for your love. Jesus, you're so good to us. And I pray that tonight these women know that they would know how loved by you they are. In your name we pray. Amen.